Okay.
Extensive notes would be.
I call the meeting, the April meeting, Blount County Council to order. And we will stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll remain standing, please. 2 weeks ago, we lost a pillar of our community, Joyce Patillo, Archie Patillo's mother. She was truly a pillar of Black Mountain for over 80 years. She was a pillar in her family, guiding her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren to become responsible, caring adults and adolescents. She was a pillar at the Mills Creek Chapel Church, where she helped folks strengthen their faith and learn how to care for others. She was a pillar in our community, extending a hand to those in need and helping them through tough times, and especially her work at the Shenandoah Valley Christian Ministry. She was kind, she was loved, and she was loving. Coach Bear Bryant, the famous Alabama football coach, when he was preparing his team for a big game, would sometimes stop and ask those tough, big young men a simple question. Have you called your mama today and told her you love her? Archie and I, we can't do that, but some of you can. Think about your mom and dad and give them a call. Eternal rest grant to Joyce on the Lord. May her soul and all the souls of the faith departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. You may be seated. All right. I don't have any announcements right now. We've got the proclamation of Earth Day, and that is Earth Day 2023. Whereas we acknowledge the extraordinary importance of maintaining a clean and healthy environment, and whereas the global community faces challenges such as health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth and opportunity. Whereas we are all caretakers of our planet, we have an obligation to combat climate change and environmental degradation to preserve the Earth's beauty and resources. Whereas this year marks 53rd anniversary of Earth Day, let it be known that the town of Black Mountain encourages all business institutions to celebrate Earth Day and commit to caring for the planet and its resources. Now therefore, I, C. Michael Sobel, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day, and encourage people in the town to combat climate change, environmental degradation, and support green economy initiatives, and to encourage others to take similar action. Proclaim this day, the 10th of April. All right, we now move into citizens' comments. We have 3 folks that have signed up. First on the list is Andrew Clark.
Hello, I'm Andrew Clark, Legislative Director for Bedingfield-Scheidel, Chapter 14, Disabled American Veterans. DAV Chapter 14 is dedicated to a single purpose, empowering veterans to lead high-quality lives with respecting dignity. I'm here today to thank the town of Black Mountain for supporting the veteran population of this community. We have many life members that call this place home. As a graduate of Charles D. Owen High School, I recall sitting in the same auditorium chairs, hearing the stories of great American heroes that gave the ultimate sacrifice, fighting to stop the spread of communism in the jungles of Vietnam. 50 years later, we can't say it enough. Welcome home. Extending that welcoming, DAV Chapter 14 thanks those who responded to the nation's call in Afghanistan and Iraq. 20 years later, thanks to historical legislation of recent passage of the PACT Act, DAV 14 encourages all veterans to seek out benefits earned through honorable military service. DAV Chapter 14 has been an advocate for disabled veterans and their families for over 95 years in this town and will continue to do so for many generations. Continue to build local community partnerships such as longtime community partner Black Mountain Machine and Tool, who still to this day hires veterans and dependent of veterans offering health care, access that granted one of our chapter members the crucial access to medical opinions for service connection, whom suddenly died far too young, but thanks to the actions of community partners, died as a recognized service-connected veteran. Recognition extending to the town of Black Mountain, who many staff and are veterans or dependent of veterans and key roles. That's why DAV supports additional funding for emergency responders. Support for emergency responders is a win for veterans and a formula for a thriving future. Moving forward, you should expect from DAV receiving a copy of our legislative goals for 2023, additional mail correspondence from our Office of DAV Chapter 14 Commander and DAV Legislative Director with information about the needs of disabled veterans and proven programs that support America's heroes and their families returning back to civilian life. Programs we ask this town to provide additional funding to support, such as programs at the Charles George VA Medical Center not supported through federal spending. Furthermore, we encourage this council to support North Carolina House Bill 296, 139, 427, 487, 37, and 319. Bettingfield Shidle, Chapter 14, Disabled American Veterans can be reached at dav14.org or by calling 828-367-0037. In closing, the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 14 accomplishes our mission by ensuring that veterans and their families can access the full range of benefits available to them, fighting for the interests of America's heroes on Capitol Hill, and educating the public about the great sacrifices and needs of veterans transitioning back to civilian life. I thank you for the time and yield back.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Next up, Doug Brock.
Good afternoon, I'm Doug Brock. I've lived at the same place for 38 years, 296 Old Lakey Gap Road. And I know y'all are gonna be discussing South Ridgeway today, and I think it's a resolution's put forth to make South Ridgeway one-way, and I'm gonna ask you not to do that tonight. We're gonna learn some information about it. I hope it'll be helpful, but so many of my neighbors are here, and we're just kind of shocked to hear about it last minute, that this plan has been put forth, and we feel left out of the discussion. So please don't pass this resolution tonight. We'll listen. We might agree with some of what you have to say, but you have a 40-foot wide right-of-way there going through South Ridgeway. If you want to make it safer, widen it and put in an elevated sidewalk. Don't make it one way. And don't make it one way without notifying all the people involved. A recent decision was made to make this section of South Ridgeway also non-conforming, where many of the users on South Ridgeway are folks who live in those homes. Well, I don't know if you realize it, but now in this district, Central Business District, you can't have a residential use on the first level. So all these 14 homes are non-conforming uses. So if they were to quit using their home for 6 months by using some other venture, as the zoning code allows, they won't be able to move back in. So all these decisions are being made without really sufficient notification to the people who are most affected. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Next up, Rick Early.
Mr. Mayor, I think the annexation has been kicked to the next month. Is that correct? The annexation discussion?
Well, we did not.
Okay, that's okay. I'll start over.
Yeah, go ahead and do it, because you could address it next month also.
I'm Rick Early, 107 Oakland Drive in Black Mountain. As I was going through the agenda packet, I noticed that on the annexation request, it indicated that the planning board, of whom I'm one of the members, planning board was recommending UR8 for that annexation, and the planning board actually recommended SR2. Just wanted to make that clarification before you took any action based upon that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You got any communication? You got any communication you want to share with us, Josh? Or
My communication will be at the end of the meeting, Mayor. This would be for your items under 4A and B.
all right. And with the National Fire Safety Fundraiser proposal, and just Mr. Ed Newsom.
Evening, hi.
Go ahead.
There we go. Good evening. I'm Ed Newsom with the National Fire Safety Council. We are a national nonprofit that provides fire safety, fire education material for the young school kids, homeowners, and seniors. I've been asked by Chief Coffey and Fire Marshal Doug Morrow of the Black Mountain Fire Department to introduce our program at this evening's meeting. So what we do is that we send out letters to the businesses, not the residents, to the businesses in the Black Mountain area, if this is so green lighted, saying that we're having a fire education program for the young school kids. Would they like to participate? If they would, here's an envelope to send a donation in. If not, they throw it away. We don't call, we don't tell you your auto warranty is about to expire, we don't email, we don't door knock, we send one letter. Okay, does it work? I cover North and South Carolina. I've got over 80 programs that are very active, such as your neighbors in Burke County, Mitchell, Transylvania County, and the city of Franklin. How well does it work? Well, last year I raised over $200,000 for those programs, so average between $2,000 and $3,000 per program, and so I expect with the size of the Black Mountain business community, we should be able to do that too, if not even a little more. So we send out the letters, we let it run for about 45 days. If you've got a bill at home, you know after 45 days whether you're going to take action or something. You don't need 6 months. You can't find it in 6 months. So we let it run for 45 days, and the donations to come in, we have our total. The only thing we take off the top is the cost of sending out the letters, because we're a national nonprofit, but they don't give us free envelopes and postage. So let me give you some examples. Say that donations come in and we raise $3,300. We spend $300 on the mailing, and so now he's got $3,000 to go spend on all our materials. Let me see, manuals, color sheets, pamphlets, pencils, wristbands, bookmarks, trifold, magnet. I've got a variety of things. I brought a sample bag, and after the meeting, I'm gonna spread them out right here. I'd like for you all to see how colorful they are. It makes learning fun, and the kids get safe fire education. Okay, so if we raise the $3,000 for John and Doug to spend, and they want to spend it all on Fire Week, they certainly can. We have raised it for them. They spend it all on Fire Week. If we raise them $3,000 to spend and they spend $2,500 on Fire Week, that extra $500 stays in their account until they decide to spend it. They always have complete control over it. Now, I want you to hear me. If we send out the letters, we spend $300 and no one, zero, zilch, nothing happens, then I have greatly overestimated the generosity of the Black Mountain community, and I will never come to the city council or the fire department with an invoice. That is my risk, that's on me. All right, if we spend $300 on the mailings and we raise $400, whoopee, $100 to spend. He looks at me, this isn't working. Then spend the $100 and thank you for giving us a try. Now, if we raise $3,300, $300 from right, and he's got $3,000 to spend, and he's happy, and the schools are happy, and the kids are happy. Then I'm gonna go see him every year and go, are you happy? Yeah. You wanna do it again? Okay. But there's not an agreement that says he's gotta try me this many times. He stays in control, he can stop it at any time. Okay, so, let's see. I am going to, as I mentioned, if I could, I'm gonna spread out my things after the meeting. Please come by and see them. I've got some samples. Take them home, see what you think. I'll have my reference list if you were gonna hand that out, or is that something? I'll have it here too. Please come see all the programs that we have. And we, right now, as a national nonprofit, we've got over 1,000 programs that we're dealing with. Fire departments, fire marshals, emergency services. We reach over 1 million kids with over 4 million pieces of material. It's all about the kids, making them safe. We'd love to give it a try. The risk is mine. If it falls all apart, I don't think we're gonna get anywhere near that. You guys might remember, I know I got some gray on some of you guys, but remember going to school and the fire department would come and they would hand out things and keep everybody safe. That's what this is about. Let's keep as many kids safe as we can. Questions, comments that I can answer? Yes, ma'am.
Do the printed materials say, who do they say they're from?
We've got manuals that on the back, we say thank you and list all our sponsors on the back.
The letters that go to the businesses, who do they say they're from?
Do you happen to have that? You've got the letter that's
I
on
got
the,
it already, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know they'd handed it out. There we go.
Got a bunch of paper.
Well.
Okay.
There we go. That's what the letter looks like. That's the summary of our program. I think what she's referring to is that one. There we go. That's what the businesses will see. And again, we send this to the businesses, not the residents, but to the businesses.
Mr. Sneed, is there anything that the council needs to do on this? You know, he was speaking about endorsing, but I'm not so sure that we need to endorse something.
The chief wanted to inform the city council for your feedback and invited me here to say hello and introduce our program.
It doesn't sound like something you need to approve, but for one thing, although the money comes through the fire department, money gets fired, spend the money from the fire department, still town money. It'll be an accounting that our accounting financial department want to see come and go. But other than that, all it takes is an affirmation that you don't tell the chief not to do it.
Right, the address at the bottom, right-hand corner, that's where that envelope to send a donation is. They'll come to the chief first. He will always see the money coming in. We are completely transparent. There will never be a question of how well the program's going because he will see it first before even I see it. Good questions.
Anybody got any other questions? If not,
Mr. Sneed, I think I saw on the back of your thing, you had a black and white fold-out that we handed out. There we go. Good. This was one of the clever ways that it does. We had a fire chief take that, there's an English side and there's a Spanish side, and he took it to the English side. He took it to the local Italian restaurant. That's it. And he said, put this in front of the kids when the families come in. And what they found is that when the hostess would sit them down, now when the waitress would come in about 3 minutes later, they found that the mom and dad had set their phones down and they were in there going, ooh, what's hot and what's not? Oh, I'm sorry, we hadn't even looked at the menu yet. And they were getting fire education with their pizza. And if you'll flip that same sheet over, that's in Spanish. And so now he handed it out at the Mexican restaurant. And now there was a Latino population that may have not get the most fire education. They were getting it too. I thought that was such a smart idea. And say, you know what, that looked like a placemat to me. So we've got all kinds of ways to make the kids safe, and we were even reaching out to restaurants. I thought that was a clever idea. Good
Chief
questions.
Coffey, I have to assume you wouldn't be here if you didn't think this was a great idea, correct?
Correct. No, since COVID, just all the fire departments, countywide, statewide, public education is kind of come to a standstill. We want to get that ramp back up, if not better than the way our programs used to be in the Black Mountain area. So this is one of the avenues to get more funding and start pushing our fire life safety programs to the children and to the rest of the community.
When do you see launching all of it?
Just as soon as we're done
Just
here
as
today,
soon as we get enough
wanted to make
smiles
sure-
going this way.
Because the money involved and because we'd be partnering with a nonprofit, I wanted to make sure, especially with council, that there wasn't anything that we needed to do beforehand. So,
pleasure of the board.
Sounds good to me.
That's good to me.
Sounds good.
As long as it's
Support.
to
Thanks.
where.
As long as you're happy with it, chief. Sounds
The
good.
money is gonna run through the town?
It will,
From
yes.
here? Okay, yeah.
Let it be
Thank you for your time. Let's go keep the kids safe.
unanimous affirmation.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Chief Steve Parker, Police Department.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody having us up here for the report. Brought the major with me for backup, just in case. Actually, if there's a question or something that I go through here and I don't know it, I'm sure that he will. So brought him up here to help me out if needed. Just a couple things. Wanted to go over the 2022 and talk about our accomplishments, then talk about needs, issues that are going on within the police department. We'll talk about crime stats, staffing, issues, recruitment and retention issues, which are nationwide, vehicles, equipment, and officer wellness and mental health. I'll talk about that throughout this. Some things in 2022 that council helped me accomplish and staff did a great job is we came in compliance with State Bill 300, and we have an early intervention warning system. So if anybody on the staff has something that comes up where there are repetitive complaints, repetitive use of force, different things like that, we get alerted as a command staff to go, this person's had more than everybody else, and it might have been on a different shift, so we might not know. We get an early warning intervention alert so that we might be able to offer them mental health wellness. There might be something going on in the family, something might be going on. But it just helps us know what's going on with staff. So we implemented that software. Another thing that council was helped us go through last year is in July of 2022, we got our new CAT system. Funny enough, I had this in 1995 at my old agency, but we just now got it. Very important. You can see where vehicles are just in case someone's has an emergency or a crisis and they weren't able to get out on the radio. You can see what the staff's doing so that if there's a shortage in staff, if there's things going on, it just helps us be more efficient as a police department. And then we went online with Buncombe County Records Management System so that everybody in the county has the same records management system. So I know what Buncombe County did with somebody got pulled over yesterday as they did in Black Mountain today, or somebody who was having a mental health crisis. So it helps us have information. Another accomplishment, we were able to go live with the Police to Citizen website. Basically what this website is transparency. That's all there is to it. This website, you can find out what happened in your neighborhood, your town. You can pull up CAD calls. You can look for accidents that occurred. You can get reports if you need them, recent arrests. It's just a great tool and a transparency tool. And so that's live for every citizen to go to if they ever want to go to it. And that was a big undertaking as well. Then last year, as we came in front of you, we're one of around 50 municipalities in the state of North Carolina that has went through the league's municipal risk review. Through that, we went through 39 high-risk policies. We got approval. And the bigger thing is that we received a 14% insurance reduction from the League of Municipalities, so we saved money. So we're lowering our risk and saving money. This was the award that was given to us in October of 2022. The last thing on accomplishments is I told you body cams and in-car cams were a huge issue that they weren't integrated together. Council approved us to do that. We received our new body cams in December of this year, and those are operational at this point. Of course, just like everything else in the world, the in-car cameras have been on back order. They are coming in May, so we are getting ready.
We have them already, they're just waiting to be installed.
Okay, so within the next month, we'll have our body cams and our in-car cams will be integrated so that if there's a crisis situation, we don't have to think about pressing our button. It will do it automatically, which is very important. Going on to crime statistics. Again, I think I told you last year when I was up here, we watched 3-year trends. I think it's important. You can have that 1 year that's an anomaly. You don't know what it is, but so we watched 3 years. Our violent crime had a 16% decrease last year, but I'm not pounding the chest or touting anything because it's stayed pretty much the same for the last 3 years. So that isn't major. Our property crime, though, has had a 24% decrease. Now, I don't know 100% what I can attribute that to. I would say I'd like to say it's the great work of the police officers, and one of the programs that we do is called You Could Have Been a Victim, and the officers or staff are going out and literally pulling doors within businesses probably 300 to 400 times a month, and they're finding open doors all the time that could end up having victims of crime. But instead, we're making sure that those doors are locked, leaving a card also saying, you know, these are some things you can do. And I think that could be attributed to that. But next year, I'll get back to you and I'll let you know if we have a different wave on that. Collisions, you see that there's a 13% increase. But if you look over the 3-year trend, I think, as the mayor said, over a couple last few months, I heard him say, not has his traffic doubled, tripled, but it may be quadrupled. And I think that that's just something that we're seeing in the population and the tourism within this town is we're seeing more collisions because there's more people here. And then our citations and warnings have increased. We increased by 200 in citations, probably about 400 in warnings. I think that we're just trying to go out and do more education, enforcement, and trying to curve some of these collisions the best that we can. A little bit of environment change, then, you know, warnings when needed, but then enforcement when we need to do enforcement. Next, this is just, you'll hear me say this probably all the time. We're caught up in this middle of homelessness, drugs, mental health, and suicide, and calls for service just rotate around with us on a constant cycle. And we don't have the resources or the ability. It just seems I could name a couple mental health that I know that council has gotten calls on that we call out a resource that we need and they're not able to help us, and we just keep going back and forth with the same things every day. So that's just a huge issue for us. I wanted to show you that fentanyl or just overdose deaths in general, look at the 5-year trend. If that's not alarming, I don't know what is. Went from 52,000 deaths in the nation in 2015 to 106 in 2021. I'm telling you that number is way higher this year, and they even have some new zombie fentanyl now that's used with tranquilizers for animals that is eating away at people's skins, and it is now within our state. We had 15 overdose calls in Black Mountain. That alone should be an alarm to you, that this little town of Black Mountain had 15 overdose calls. Every one of those calls, I can say here, the major just last month, someone pulled in the police department with their 9-year-old daughter and died in front of us. The major was able to bring them back with Narcan, with this 9-year-old girl that had to see it. This is the alarming trend. Those are the deaths, but those are not the calls that we're getting every day. We're dealing with this on an everyday basis. North Carolina is not any different than the nation. Over from 2018 to 2022, near doubled, just like the nation national statistics. Want to say mental health calls in general. We had 215 calls for service in Black Mountain alone for mental health crisis. We had 5 suicides. That alone, I want to say, those are 215 calls for service that have serious potential to have serious ramifications. Each one of those should not be handled by one officer. These are people in crisis. And each one of our officers, I can say that you'll see something in a little bit, but most every one of them have crisis intervention training. We're actually going to make that a requirement as being part of our police department, is you're going to have crisis intervention training if you're going to deal with people that are in mental health crisis. And then the one that keeps me up every night, this is just showing where 4 or more people were killed or injured. And you look at this stat again, 2014, I'm always a bearer of bad news, right? This is, depressing. But in 2014, 273 killings where 4 or more people were injured. And you look at that stat in 2022. My daughter's getting ready to go to Isle of Palms in 2 weeks. Isle of Palms just had 6 people shot over the weekend at the beach. If you've ever been at Isle of Palms, I would never expect it. But yet here I'm telling my daughter and worrying. Our staff is worried about that every day. I don't sleep at night thinking about this statistic every day. This is a chart, the first 6 months of 2022, active shooter chart, mass shootings. If you look, the purple color with dots, the multiple dots are multiple shootings on one day, and the ones with nothing are the ones that were mass shooters. There's more with the purple and multiple dots than there is with less. If that shouldn't be of concern for us as a community, I think you would be wrong. Some other things we're dealing with right here, we deal with homelessness on a consistent basis. Another thing that our investigations is dealing with on a separate is we had 33 DSS cases referred. These are just referrals, not ones that we go to. We had 7 child sexual assaults, 6 child abuse cases. Each one of those cases, the reason why I bring that up, they require a forensics exam, a psychological exam. They require months and months of us doing investigations. It's not something that we just turn around and conduct an investigation and are done with. That's just something to show that the staff has a lot to deal with. So moving to the next thing is where do we want to go? Wanted to talk about staff. I'll do this quickly. I'll try to move a little quicker. The first graph, the blue and orange, that's the amount of hiring rate. Hiring is down. Blue was the year before. Orange is now, or 2021, it's gone down. Resignations and retirement have both gone up on resignations, and so to years past. So what that says is we have less applicants, more resignations, more retirements. That's basically what I wanted to get out of that. What do we have? I wanted to say this is very telling. I want to tell you what we do with what we have. This is a picture in 1998 of 12 full-time staff, or 20 full-time staff members that were on the Black Mountain Police Department 25 years ago. This is a picture today that we are operating with 21. So 25 years later, we're operating with one more than we had. What are we dealing with different? We have Airbnbs, VRBOs, active shooters is different. That was never there. We're dealing with 25,000 people a day in this community. We don't deal with 8,500. We deal with 25,000. We have to make sure we serve everybody. Tourism is different. Breweries here are different. The training and the amount of things that we have to do required by the state, and then the additional things that I add on to it is, I can tell you it is tough to do all of it. Mental health is at all-time high. Drugs and alcohol, we talked about. Suicide and homelessness. So in this year's budget, you will see last year, my plan was we need 4 per shift. There is no doubt. Last year's council was good enough to add 2 per shift. We added those 2. Unfortunately, recruitment has been a difficulty, but we need to add those 2 more so we have 4 per shift. That way we make sure that we always have at least 3 working, because you always have 1 on vacation, 1 in training, 1 sick, 1 not hired, and 3, no less than 3 is a minimum requirement. It's a critical need. Last year, I'll just show you a graph. The major did this graph. He did a great job. But last year, we only had 39 days that our patrol staff was fully staffed. That's it. 365 days, only 39 days were fully staffed, meaning most days we were operating with 2 officers working a patrol shift. That is not good. That is not where we need to be. Next, we have great people, great potential candidates. If you guys end up approving in the budget for 2 potential staff members, we have people like Daniel that are ready, that have been a part of the cadet program, that we're getting ready to send him through BLET. We sponsored him, and he is a great young man. So we feel like we have some great candidates ready to fill if council approves. And then next, I want to talk about cars. It's my recommendation. It's been the recommendation with towns that I've worked at, and they've gone to it. At 8-year car rotation, you don't want to have anything less than an 8-year car rotation. That's a 3 to 4 year car replacement. What's that do? It helps lead to decreased maintenance cost, increased revenue on resale, and increase efficiency on proper vehicle work. And I will say that we're also looking at EV, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this part of it. But if you go to what we're at right now, we're at a 13-year car cycle basically. The Blue Book value for a 2010 Crown Victoria midpoint is $1,200. So we're getting ready to sell 3 of them probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And you can expect the revenue that we receive back from that to be about $3,600. Over an 8-year time frame, that's $28,000 in revenue coming back to the town. My recommendation is this: we go to an 8-year car rotation. Your Blue Book value on rotating cars out at 8 years is $19,500 at the midpoint. That's $58,500 in revenue coming back to the town. $58,500 in revenue over 8 years is $468,000 coming back to the town, as opposed to $28,800 coming back to the town. So that's $439,000 in positive revenue return difference. So some other things that I'm going to talk about through that is mechanical charges. So the first year I was here, we did $75,000 it cost us to maintain and upgrade a 13-year-old fleet. $55,000 this year, so I put the midpoint $65,000. Over 8 years, that's $520,000 in mechanical cost. 8-year car rotation, I can bring that maintenance cost down to $20,000. I can almost guarantee it. 25 as a max. You're always going to have those years that there's going to be some things that cost more. That's $200,000 in 8 years as opposed to $520,000. That's a difference in the budget of $320,000 in revenue coming back and mechanical costs that it cost us to have a 12 to 13-year-old fleet. $320,000 in positive mechanical reduction, $439,000 in vehicle resale. That's $759,000 in positive revenue back to the town over 8 years. It's a no-brainer. It's also vehicles that work, that we're able to use and make sure that we utilize it. And we have had probably, I say no less than a dozen times we couldn't find vehicles this year because they weren't operating correctly. Would that be close?
We couldn't use them, yeah. There was several times when we had 3 or 4 that were not working at the same time.
So that's just something that I wanted to let you all know. Through that, I wanted to let you know that we're doing strong research in the purchase of EV vehicles. I know that there's other departments around the state that have gone EV. I'm being very slow and tactical in that, but making it a priority. Number one, the infrastructure is most important. Infrastructure for superchargers, you want to have a dual supercharger, you're talking about $90,000. We want to make sure that we're putting public safety vehicles out there in the EV range, that they can be charged within the time frame that they need to be charged. So infrastructure is number one. Number two, we went to a class in January, and the FBI and the state, Duke Power, came, and there's no question, you can Google it, our power companies are under attack. And through that, we need to make sure that the infrastructure is protected so that if those power companies go down, we can still serve the citizens. So there's a lot of things that I'm looking at on dual EV, gas, what best serves. And then next, what's important to me is all of the police vehicles are rated through the state of Michigan nationwide, and they only release a certain amount of police vehicles. The police vehicles that they do rate to make sure that they're able to go through this also only have upfitting. So companies that do the upfitting, the cages, the backs, the radars, that only certain they only upfit the cars that are rated for police vehicles. So I'm doing my due diligence on all this research, and we're close, but we're not there yet for police response vehicles. We might move quicker into the administration vehicles once the infrastructure is set in place. But I wanted to let you know that I'm doing my due diligence on that, and I'm trying to wrap up. I know there's lots of other people. Hiring and retention, I'm almost done. Last year, we had 24 applicants. Out of the 24 applicants, for 3 positions that we had, 17 didn't even qualify for me to interview. 3 of them only put in reserve, meaning I only had 4 possible candidates for the 3 positions. That's all I had choice, not the best of the best, but 4 possible candidates. And I'm telling you, I'm only hiring the best of the best, because we will not have a black eye for Black Mountain on hiring the wrong candidate who's not operating the way that we need to. So that's why you see some of those spots, and we're operating at 21, even though you all generously gave us some spots last year. It takes time for us to get there. We do have some promising candidates that have put in this year. 3 female candidates. We've added or changed a training coordinator to help us with, I told you all when I first got here, recruiting and diversity, and that's in the infancy stages, but that's important to me, and we have 3 female candidates right now that I think are going to be on our staff, hopefully. And then last, the Career Ladder Program. So currently, council had approved, this is old, there is a incentive program and a career ladder program. Right now, nobody on my staff is in the career ladder program. They don't qualify. So we've built, and I had staff help build. The major led it. We want to get rid of the incentive program for this budget and move towards a true recruitment and retention plan that has succession planning. Your next chief should come within Black Mountain, your next major, your next lieutenants. And this is a plan that is built for that. And it's also, it's financially sound. It's not going to hurt us budget-wise to move away from the incentive program and go to this. It will have no financial impact for us in the immediate future. The only thing that will have a financial impact is I will be recommending that there's a $1,000 recruitment for hired certified. So if one of our officers helps recruit a hired certified officer, which we need immediately, $500 for non-certified, a $2,000 sign-on bonus. We could be like DC, they're doing $25,000. San Francisco's doing $75,000. I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. I don't want to get laughed out of here. I know that. But we do need something to attract candidates to come here. We have a great place, but it's a challenge to get law enforcement, and it takes 9 months. Once we start recruiting them and signing them, they're no good to this town for 9 months. My main thing is retention, retention, retention. And then $50 a day incentive for field training officers. Last, we are, again, hopefully by September of this year, we will be one of 6 pilot programs within the state for the state accreditation. This will be maybe what puts me in my grave and everybody else. But well worth it for the citizens of Black Mountain. It basically is saying we're the best of the best, and that we make sure that we operate the best of the best. And then last, we're struggling with space and needs. We're in a building that was built in 1958, 65 years old. We moved in there in 1991 before computers were even in our building. I can take anyone around if they'd love to come see it and tell them the challenges that we have. It's just a serious issue for us. I'm hoping that it doesn't become the biggest issue for accreditation, because I know that they have some very strict rules, but I think that I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't hurt us with accreditation. So last special response vehicle, I sat in front of you all. I talked to each one of you a little bit different about, are we ready if an active shooter comes here? Yes, our staff is ready. We're willing to die. We're willing to do whatever needs to be done. But one thing I can say is that we have some challenges. Our equipment's spread throughout because we don't have a place for our equipment. I don't have a response vehicle. The fire department, thank you, Chief, was good enough to donate this to us from town, from one department to another, but I need to upfit it so it can respond appropriately when we have that bomb call like we had in March of last year, and the guy said he was going to start shooting us from the wood line. We didn't have a vehicle to take cover in and prepare our plan, and so I'll be asking for this. And then the community golf, please spread that. June 9th, we'll be having our golf program. The downtown business, we just had a meeting with downtown businesses. It was great. We had a community concern meeting in March. Our cadet program that could have been a victim, and then we'll be doing National Night Out. And I'm sorry I took so long. It was a lot of stuff to cover. I apologize. I know that that was long, but I did want to open it up for any questions that anybody had.
I'm going to guess that you've got something in place to help take care of the officers as they process what they deal with every day.
So I'm glad you asked that question. I had so much going on. The plan is that we went to a crisis management training class last month. All of command staff went to that so that when we have serious incidents like the 18-year-old that committed suicide, we can offer help that needs. But we're also trying to put in budget this year where each staff member goes and at least meets with a professional once a year so that if they need more, that they have somebody to talk to, which is something that I've never been involved in, and I'm proud to say that this is something that's very, very needed, and I'm glad that we're headed towards this.
I believe you said that when we're fully staffed, we have 3 officers on duty at a time, is that right?
So we're staffed where we have 3. We have positions for night shift to have 4, which is what I talked about. I wanted to do it in increments last year on purpose because I want to be mindful of taxpayers' money. But so we did get approval for 4 on night shift, but we have those 2 openings for day shift. The problem is the recruitment retention's been the difficulty, but I think we're almost there across that hurdle. We actually hired 2 and they're in field training. So those 2 for night shift will be filled. We just need 2 for day shift. So that way we have 3 per shift all the time. 4 per shift.
And how often is everyone who's on shift responding to a call?
So how often?
Like, is that?
So everyone, like, that's.
Versus, in a parking lot, waiting for a speeding car to come by or something like that.
I don't have the exact time frame for that to say how many calls for service are they on. I can say that we did about 10,000 calls for service last year. Each call for service is different, right? So sure. If it's a domestic call, it could be hours and hours that we might not have anybody free. And then if it's a property check, we could have a full staff pretty quickly. If that's I don't know if that's getting to the question you're asking.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how often are all 3 of the officers, dealing with the situation versus being available in case something to
I think I can really help with that question. I know I had been keeping track since roughly this time last year, and there's been roughly 60 times where everybody was on a call at the same, like where there was no one actually available to
right.
answer a call because everybody was either at the jail, on a call, or assisting like another agency.
And that's 0. That's the 60. That's meaning we have no police officers. There's a lot more times that we only have 1 police officer, which is not good for backup issues.
So, Chief, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you have the positions that you need, or is it that you just can't, not finding the officers qualified to fill the ones that you do?
Yes and yes. So we need 2 more positions.
Okay.
We need 2 more positions, no question. It's not in my opinion, as the police chief coming to you, it's not a want, it's a need. There is a safety issue for the citizens and the officers having 3 per shift. You all gave us 2 last year. Those were for night. My plan was to make sure that we asked for 2 additional this year. I won't be coming back next year asking for more. That will be taking care of the plan of making sure that we're staffed correctly.
Thank you.
And yes, we're having trouble getting people to come, yes.
You mentioned that resignations were on the rise right now. Can you point that back to anything specific, or is that just the trend nationally?
So I would say I don't want to say that's just law enforcement. I think people are struggling for staffing across the board everywhere. But I will say where it becomes more of an issue or more glaring in law enforcement is it takes 3 months, minimum 3 months for the day you apply to even for me to think about looking at your application. 3 months then to do your background, and then it takes more time to go through the field training program and BLET. So where it's more glaring is if someone from Parks and Recs or somewhere else, I can hire them on and start them tomorrow. It takes a year. Meanwhile, during that year, someone else might have left and went to another place. So I think that that's where the recruitment issues are coming. But I think that I would say that no doubt that COVID and George Floyd were where the true trend change started. Now, I can say in 2015, I saw a small change, but the dramatic change was then.
On mutual aid, because then if we're 0 for 60 days, is what you were saying, or 60
times.
The fire department has mutual aid with Swananoa Fire Department. Don't we have mutual aid with Buncombe County Sheriff's Department?
We do. Typically, we end up answering more calls for them than they do for us, but usually they only have about 1 person, so they're 45% down on staff. So they're way worse than we are. Asheville and Buncombe County are worse. There might only be 1 deputy in the entire eastern side of the county sometimes. In fact, when they had their homicide last year on 70, we were the ones who had to respond to help them with the homicide. So even though we have mutual aid, I do not count on mutual aid. I want to make sure that I have the resources and the staff inside this town.
What about the reserves that we have? How are they utilized?
So the reserves are very difficult, even more difficult. I think I'm going to end up having to let some reserves go. So all of the reserves will have to meet our accreditation standards. Right now, we have some reserves that are failing to haven't signed off on all of our policies. I've given them a deadline, but our reserves have to meet the entire police standard for the state. We're not having them all do that, but the other issue is we can't get them to come in for overtime when they need them. So when we have a vacancy, they have helped us with parades and different things like that, but overtime, very, very, very difficult to get them in.
Anybody else got any questions? Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Sorry for taking up too long. I apologize.
All right, Josh, lead us in the consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with 5A, which will be your adoption of minutes from the March 9th agenda meeting, the March 13th regular meeting, and the March 22nd special meeting. Item 5B is a nonprofit funding application. This has taken the place of our old application for our contributions for nonprofits. We talked about it a little bit on Thursday. That's also included in your packet. Alice did bring something to my attention. That was just some mistake in numbering for that, so that's all that was. It was not anything omitted. 5C is a resolution to authorize the use of electronic advertisement for contracts subject to General Statute 143-129. 5D, Ridgecrest Trail Feasibility Study Recommendation. This is a project that has been funded through our French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization. They are going to be looking at the feasibility of connecting a trail essentially from Black Mountain up to Ridgecrest, up to the close to Kitsuma, I believe. And 5E, lastly, will be a resolution to adopt technical assistance, our memorandum of agreement with the North Carolina League of Municipalities for technical assistance on putting together our packet for our $6 million stormwater money, $5.4 million stormwater money. And that will be your consent agenda.
Do I hear a motion from the board to pass the consent agenda?
I have a question.
Okay, we'll do that first. Okay.
Josh, in regards to the application for grant funding, nonprofit grant funding, I noticed that the deadline for applications is coming Wednesday.
Yes, so after speaking with Ron a little bit about this was something I had authority to do. So this has been sent out, it's been out right now for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So it's not just 2 days.
Okay.
This was sent out mid-March. So they've had, about three and a half weeks to fill these out. We've already got some back in now. Happy to push that date a little bit, but wanted to just be mindful of budget discussions and making those decisions.
How is it? Is it posted somewhere, or is it just?
It's on our website.
Okay.
It is,
And
we've reached out to the folks that put them in last year and let them know and gave them new ones.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else want to question an item before we make a motion? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it all passes. We're now at the point for the second set of citizen comment. No one had signed up, but I do want to let the audience know that if you wish to come forward, you may right now. Not seeing anybody, then we'll move on to unfinished business.
All right, 7A is your appointment of the town attorney. We had this discussion last month. I think a pretty good discussion. I think the only thing missing was the folks that had put in for the positions. So we decided to bring everybody back in for this meeting, and I think council had some specific questions that they had wanted to ask, and so I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, or however you want to call these folks up.
What have you got in mind to go ahead and do this? Do you want them to present, or you just want us to go ahead and go through? I know that Ms. King went ahead and put a sheet together for everyone here.
Mostly it was trying to make apples and apples in terms of the cost structure, because, the documents that came back to us were all a little bit different. And I remember our last conversation, we were all, well, what's included and what's not. And so I was trying to make some sense out of it. I'm not real clear on what to do next either. Do we want to give each one a chance to speak and then ask them specific questions about what's included, or?
We've got more here than just, there's more folks here than just, but there's 4 firms.
Right.
What about just going ahead and I'll just have one person from each firm come up, give them just a minute or two, then everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll just start right off first with Robert and Stevens.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Susan Russo-Klein. I am a partner at Robertson Stevens, and it's been my privilege to serve as your employment counsel for the past 4 years. So I've had the opportunity to work with you all. And these are big shoes that you're asking somebody to fill. I want to tell you why I want to do that and why I think my firm is qualified to do that, and make sure I answer the questions you had about this cost structure. So it's been great working with the town. Your town manager is great. Your various department heads are great. There's been a lot of interesting work. But I love Black Mountain because this is where my family is. My husband, Robert Klein, grew up here. His brother, Yanni Klein, still lives on Lake Tomahawk. One of the happiest days of my life was when I got married on Lake Tomahawk. So I have a very strong attachment to this town. My firm, however, is very experienced in representing municipalities, and that's why I'd like to be appointed to the town attorney position. I have about 15 years of experience as general counsel, and that's important because general counsel has to respond to all the things that come up, and so being able to address a variety of issues is really important here. I currently serve as general counsel for the Land of Sky Regional Council, so we work with a number of organizations. You all are a member of that Council of Governments. We also represent MSD, the town of Biltmore Forest. We represent Hendersonville, Madison County, and Cherokee County from time to time. So we have a breadth of experience in serving these organizations. And then looking over your proposal, what you're trying to do is balance that cost with also great legal counsel, and you're spoiled for choice with my colleagues here. I don't think you honestly can go wrong. I think the reason our proposal makes sense to me is that we thought very carefully about what's involved in this, and this is an important task where you need counsel to be available to answer their phones, which is what I do, to be available when you need them on the evenings and weekends, because that's when all of your emergencies are going to happen, and that's what I do. I estimated that based on what I think this is really going to take in terms of the hours, and that's going to include conversations. I know one of the questions you had was telephone calls of 15 minutes or less, and that's something I actually already do. I frequently just don't even put those on the bill because there's a lot of those 2-minute conversations that just sort of solve a problem that you don't need. They're going to laugh at me for this one, by the way, just so you know. So that I want to make sure you all are getting good counsel. So I would include employment calls in that conversation. Other short, documents. If we have a one-page document, that's going to take 15 minutes to review. That can be included in that position. What it would not include would be things like bonds, litigation, preparation of deeds. That would be more extensive work that we would charge at our firm's published rates that I provided to you there. I want to make sure I'm answering all of your questions. It would also include attending all the relevant board meetings and committee meetings as needed, as you currently do. What else can I tell you about me or about our firm?
One question I would have is that when does the meter start? When you leave Asheville or when you arrive here?
I'm including my time in this, actually. I think that part of what you're trying to do with a flat fee is not get nickel and dimed. And so, yeah, the travel costs would be included in this program. My legal assistance costs, our copying costs, our regular mailing costs, those would all be included in that flat fee.
Okay.
I did just want to clarify, you said litigation and deeds, so bonds, litigation, deeds, a separate,
Yes.
non-included.
Yes.
Thank you.
So advising on ordinances and resolutions would be included, short contracts would be included.
Okay,
In
thank
that flat fee.
So would it primarily be you attending, except, let's say it was your HR primarily, but if it was a real estate issue, there would be someone else?
Yeah, so we're a full-service firm. We have a number of attorneys who do real property law. We have a number of litigators. We have a number of land use litigators, which is important for municipalities. There's a lot of issues that come up with that. And so that's one of the things that I'm very excited about, is that I have access to 24 other attorneys with lots of knowledge and skills and experience that we can bring in here. And I can't swear that we'd be able to provide every type of service there is, but municipal bonds, for example, is something that we've done before.
Okay, no other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Oh, excuse me.
I have
Sorry,
a
Bill.
question, Susan. I'm just trying to understand, and I know, or I assume what you're trying to do is, with this lump sum proposal, is just guess. So this pretty much covers all of the regular things, what we would say, meetings, we have a retreat, including that, special meetings. And so I guess it's just not entirely clear when the clock starts ticking on something else.
So if it fell outside of those ordinary matters, if you need a deed prepared, for instance, that's going to be something that I'm going to refer to one of my real
Right.
property attorneys for them to, and the clock will start ticking. If we're having a 15-minute conversation, then that's a part of what's included. If it's going to turn into an hour-long conversation, the clock's going to start ticking at 15 minutes and 1 second, or whenever I remember to start the clock after that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Next, Alan Stahl.
Good evening, all. Thank you for having us here. My name is Derek Allen. I'm principal and partner in Allen, Stahl & Kilborn. I've got my law partners, Bo Carpenter and Jesse Swords here. Hannah Michael Love was going to join us, but she is busy writing a brief that's due tomorrow. So our approach is very similar in terms of what we've tried to do, which is include the normal stuff, the day-to-day business of running a town, try to include that in our lump sum, and to pull those things out that require a deeper dive into our proposed hourly services. For our hourly services, we're a little bit different in that we have borrowed models from other towns, municipalities that we've worked with, as well as community associations, and we have capped out that hour because we've found that we don't want folks trying to guess where to send the work to. We want them just to send it to the firm, and we can then assign it from there without regard to, I don't want to get dinged for the highest rate. So we've capped out our hourly rates at $325 for any attorneys. If the attorney's rate is less than that, then that's the rate that you would get. In terms of our history, I'm a big firm expat. I was a big firm in Greensboro for a dozen years, and then a big firm down east that opened up a shop in Asheville. So I was with giant firms for a long time. 3 years ago, we started this firm and now have 18 attorneys. So very similar. We approach it from a team concept. Co-leads would be myself and Bo. If you have trouble remembering that, it's Bo Derek. You can't forget it now. It's stuck in your brain. But we would be co-leads. You would have our cell phones at all times. Any issues come up, one of us would assign it or take it on and have it placed with the person who has the most expertise in that area. Bo does a ton of employment work for us. Jesse, who's here, is really an ordinance hound in terms of getting into the nuts and bolts of research and how things should apply. We've got great relationships down in Raleigh and in Chapel Hill with the Institute of Government. I feel comfortable at all times calling on those resources as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions. We appreciate the opportunity.
As far as who's showing up to the meetings, it'd be dependent on who was available? So.
It would be me. Bo would be second behind that. We have found that having a team is really the best way to handle these kinds of things so that we can get back to folks quickly, because the town, when a town or a community association has an issue, they really want to answer it pretty quickly with an area of expertise. And so we pride ourselves on getting back quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you what some of these, if these are normal things, the normal stuff?
Sure.
Like preparation for and attendance at town meetings, document review, production of documents related to town business, routine town business, other non-litigation matters, attending our council meetings and study sessions, review our minutes, postage, supplies, equipment, innocence.
I feel like the Grinch, included. All those things would be included. If there's ever any question on that, feel free to ask us. It's really worked well with other towns we've worked for, having it done that way. And for us, we let you know when something's outside the scope. And that's the first thing Bo and I will do. When we get a question that's kind of on the cusp, we'll say, this feels outside the scope. Go pull the engagement agreement and let's discuss it with the town.
I'd like to add to your list to make sure, would you be including attending relevant board and commission meetings as well? Zoning?
Outside of city council, outside of the town council meetings, if it was part of a town council objective, I would include those as part of that. Those aren't always part of town council objectives.
Right, not all of them require or really need an attorney present, but including those meetings. So that, like in
Yes.
our voting sort of Board of Adjustments meets, that would be.
Yeah, particularly when there are items that are going to impact on the town itself, as opposed to that independent operating board.
Gotcha, thank you.
I'll just try to remember, what would Ron do?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, and I want to thank Ron for bringing this to our attention. We weren't even going to put our names into the hat until he told us that he was really stepping down, so.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Those representing Teague and Campbell.
Good afternoon, or evening rather, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Glad to be here to talk to you guys briefly about my firm. We are Teague Campbell. We've got an office in Asheville, Buncombe County based. We also have an office in Raleigh. What I want to bring to your attention in terms of what qualities and capabilities Teague Campbell brings to the table is really just a vast amount of experience, decades of experience in doing this type of work. Going back to time much preceding my time with the firm, which is now getting on up there, along with my gray hair. We've been involved with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, the new League of Municipalities, have done direct work through counties throughout the state. Not all 100, I don't think, but we've probably touched them in some way, in some capacity at some time. I'm currently involved with, as town attorney for City of Shelby, for Transylvania County, do work with Cleveland County. We do work with Alamance County, other, smaller towns throughout the state. So we're really dealing with, some larger counties, some smaller entities, but we do have the toolkit in place to address, through our public sector services team, just about anything that's going to come across your desk. And I do feel confident that we can provide sort of the best representation for Black Mountain that you're going to be able to find to address those needs. Certainly our business model runs the spectrum through different areas of expertise. We, employment, risk management, litigation needs, appellate needs, and then, fundamentally to what you're dealing with, the day-to-day activities of the town itself. And we do have experience in that and are equipped and able to help you with those day-to-day issues as they arrive in real time. And I know from my experience in working with other folks that that's really what's key, is you need to have somebody who you can get to immediately at all points in time. And that's something that certainly we strive to make available. If for some reason it would not be myself, there would be a team of other folks in our public sector services group who would reach out to you and address what you need to know. My understanding is that, one of the points of clarification that you're looking for from us and everybody else tonight is, well, how is this going to work from a fee structure standpoint? Happy to try and answer that. And I don't think you're going to hear a lot of new information from what other folks have told you, because, I think that towns and local governments in your position are now realizing that you are sort of getting a better bang for the buck when you bring on a firm to step in the shoes of a town attorney. You've got a great deal of institutional knowledge with a point of contact that is coming in and filling in the holes for everything that might otherwise be outsourced to another attorney that you reach out to, aside from in-house counsel. So what we have put forth to you is sort of a hybrid approach where we've forecasted, I think we had 12 hours of basically baked in time that we've submitted to you to cover a range of things. And really that would include, I think, a lot of what Commissioner or Councilmember King has brought up, sort of your weekly or your biweekly meetings, attendance at Board of Adjustment hearings, what have you, the stuff that's going to happen on a routine basis. All of that is going to fall under that rubric. Additionally, my firm is going to absorb the administrative overhead costs through, paralegals, assistants, things like that. things that would fall with, outside of that would be sort of the more one-off problematic things that may come across the desk of the council at any time, whether it be, involved litigation, things of that matter. But what we're here to do, and I think what we can do is solve a lot of these problems that might otherwise balloon into something else in real time by sort of having the eye to know what's on the horizon when these things come up. And so basically anything and everything that we would be involved in working with you is gonna be lumped into that initial flat fee. And then once it goes above and beyond that, we do have an hourly structure in place. Again, that is a flat hourly structure for anyone who may be working on that, regardless of whether their rates are much higher than that typically or not. So you have the ability to forecast what is going to be on the budget line almost always. And then there are certain additional expenses should events arise that need a higher degree and concentration of attention. So I'm happy to take questions about specifics or anything else you would like to know about our firm or capabilities.
Thanks. And, I think your firm, like all the firms here, are great firms, and we're lucky to have good choices. So I'm just trying to be a good steward of the public's money here and understand the fee structure. So you're proposing this flat fee, which gets us 12 hours, basically. And then anything beyond that, you're charged at this rate. So really, that's the same rate that you're charging, is what it boils down to. If you only need 10 hours 1 month, you're a little bit ahead. And, right?
Yes, so that would be the model. I mean,
Okay.
and we tried to be,
No,
pretty
I understand.
conservative.
You're trying to predict it.
Yeah.
And so as part of those hours too, is that travel time as well?
So basically the way that we're set up this way with any of our clients throughout the firm, if you're in a certain geographical circle, we don't charge for that travel time, and you guys are just barely in that geographic circle. So that's a benefit for you all.
Lucky us.
Okay. All right. Thanks. That's helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I have a hard time visualizing what 12 hours of our work is. I just, like,
We have-
tonight we'll be here 6 probably, because it's a huge agenda.
So-
I'm joking, I'm joking. So I just don't know if, is 12 hours what we normally would use in a month?
So and I can give you some context and sort of how we came with that magic number, just so it doesn't appear so magic and out of thin air. We looked at, sort of what we allocate to other local governments, and larger counties being up here and you guys maybe being around here. And that's sort of what we forecasted that it would probably take on a regular monthly commitment. Really just us doing the best that we could to forecast what we feel like the expenditure of time would be.
It's based on some history you've got with other organizations?
That's correct,
Okay.
that's correct, yeah.
In the RFP, we did have a calculation of hours billed to the different firms, and so the past 3 years, 8 or 9 out of 12 months was over 12 hours of billed expense. And that's just,
Anything else, gentlemen, ladies? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Council. Appreciate your time.
From Van Winkle.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name is Craig Justice with the Van Winkle Law Firm, and my partner, Brian Golden, is here as well. This reminds me of me sitting around my dinner table with my 3 other siblings, having to scrap for the attention of my parents and getting to make sure I got plenty of food. And these are worthy siblings. So you won't see a lot of difference, I think, in the fee structures. What I would say to you is this. I might not look it, but I have been practicing law for over 30 years. Together with Brian Golden, we've got over 50 years' experience doing land use work. And what that means is I've been to the Supreme Court 7 times, won all 7. It's all in land use area. We represent folks all the way from Murphy to Manio. I know a lot of legislatures. I know a lot of people. And usually what I bring to the table is someone who can take something from cradle to grave, meaning I'm not going to pass off a lot of the, let's try to avoid litigation, let's get somebody else. I'll be planning to help you try to avoid problems. But if we have to get into litigation, I'd be the one to normally handle that and wouldn't be passing things off. And I've been doing that for over 30 years. We've represented a number of local governments in that time frame. Currently, we do work for Brevard, Woodford, Montreat, Maggie Valley, Clyde, a lot of areas that are very similar to Black Mountain, at least in terms of population. Again, I've got worthy siblings here trying to get your attention. I think the money is not it as much as what I bring to the table and my partner Brian brings to the table in terms of experience. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I am from Hendersonville originally, lived in the Asheville area since 1991. So I've been around here, and our firm happens to be the largest staffed attorney firm. I don't know about Ward and Smith if you count all their offices around the state, but in Asheville, North Carolina, we have well over 35 lawyers. And so we cover basically every topic, but like I said, I don't have to hand off a lot. But if there was an employment issue, we have an employment attorney. But most things dealing with municipal law and land use planning, those are things that I'm capable of handling along with my partner Brian.
Thank you. Now we come to that moment of, you got any questions for us?
Maybe it's just the way you wrote it, that you had option 1 as the hourly rate, and then the option 2 as the flat fee. Is that what you recommend or prefer?
Well, like Clyde, for example, doesn't do a flat fee. They feel like they don't need as many attorneys appearing in front of them all the time, so they like the discounted rate. And so it was just an option that we provide to other municipalities. Most of the folks that I deal with, like Maggie Valley, we do a flat rate. And if for routine matters, you heard that today, routine matters. What does that involve? Well, that's all the routine things, and if it wasn't routine, I would tell you up front it's not routine. But it's very similar to what everybody else spoke of in terms of what routine is. I think the goal of life for y'all is try to keep everything routine, right? So that's what I think our expertise brings to the table, is try to avoid the litigation. Because that was one of the questions. Please share your approach regarding legal risk mitigation. That's communication and knowledge. And so I bring the knowledge, and I will tell you, you need to communicate. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I see you got those are my questions that I sent out. So of that list there of the responsibilities, can you just specify which would be in that annual rate?
So all of it, in terms of attending the various meetings, the consultation, the So when you drill down, it's really the fourth bullet point you got here. Preparing ordinances,
split hairs,
resolutions,
that's good.
contracts, bonds. You know, bonds is a very specialized area that normally takes a lot more time. So that's sort of a non-routine thing. Real estate deeds, deeds are fairly routine. So again, this, I guess, is the communication to you. If you were asking someone to negotiate a cradle-to-grave purchase of a large tract of land for a municipal park, that would take some time and involvement, and that would be something we'd have to identify up front. But if you said, Ms. Smith liked to deed part of her property so we could put a park bench or draw up a deed is a routine thing. Ordinances also, they have their own life. You know, you can ask for an ordinance that might be 2 pages or 3 pages long. You may ask for the whole zoning ordinance to be rewritten. That takes some time to rewrite a zoning ordinance. But generally, most of your ordinances are going to be short and routine. But again, this is all part of just telling you up front, is it a routine or is it not routine?
Right, it sounds like scale would be
It's scale.
a
Sure.
key component there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would just mention from the years that I've had in, and this is just my opinion on it, the years I've had in construction, and when you get bids from different people, you know, they can give you a comprehensive bid, but then again, they're going to be covering themselves. And I've found out that most of the time, just having an hourly wage rate is one of the better ways to go. So I just throw that out for your considerations. I will say that I'm not going to be giving any idea about who I would like to see for the town, because of the fact that Brian, with Van Winkle, worked with my wife at Patla, Strauss, Robinson and Moore for 14 years. So I certainly don't feel right in saying anything about any of the firms, but I think that I can go ahead and oversee this vote that we're going to have. So, do you have any particular, do you want to go ahead and do it on just a basis of, let's just get someone making a motion? Or do we want to try to do it on a ranked basis? Ranked voting?
Is there any discussion?
No, it's difficult to kind of pull it all apart, but like I say, based on, I've had experience with many, I haven't had any experience with Teague Campbell firm during my practice over 28 years, but I certainly have with all the other firms and most of them, people here as well. So I think they're all qualified, and that is good. I think it's trying to figure out who you might have the best relationship with, and that's hard. And I think we'd have a good relationship with any of them, so that doesn't help.
I mean, it seemed to me that, as far as what's included, seemed fairly similar across the board. Just thinking about cost, there's quite a big swing here between the four candidates, and I think that we have to be responsible here. I think all of them, as Bill said, or Councilmember Christie said, seem very qualified. So I am focused on the cost, I think, above anything else.
I think this is the most uncomfortable I've ever been. I mean, this is really awkward. And all of you are top notch. I mean, it's really hard to differentiate in my mind. The quality of service is not an issue. And the money, of course, we all worry about that. There is a fair range, though, amongst the four. So it may come down to that. Go away and then we'll talk.
It is very unique to interview people and then discuss how the interviews went in front of them. Yeah.
What's the timeline for this? You're leaving when?
Tomorrow?
That's not true.
No, you bid this out for the new attorney to start July 1st, so you got a little working around.
Seeing that nothing is really jumping out, I would suggest that the decision tonight is not necessary.
I don't know if it's necessary. Is it going to be any different in a month from now?
Well, the difference is they won't be sitting here.
Thank you.
They might. It's a public meeting.
Well, they can come back if they want.
Does anyone want to make a motion? Recommend the firm?
I'll make a motion to appoint the Van Winkle Law Firm as town council attorney.
Okay. Any discussion?
I was also gonna.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what led you to that?
And maybe specify if you're talking about option 1 versus option 2 specifically, or?
Yeah, that's tough.
Well, with
Sorry.
with option 1, if we go the hourly rate and if it's $3.50, 12 hours, that's $4,200. If I did the math right.
If it's 12 hours.
4,200.
Yeah. And if we go with option 2, then it was 2,100. So that's kind of easy math.
Yeah, I think the question for me would be the variance between months. I mean, months when there's 32 hours of legal involvement versus 5 hours in a month.
We had months where there were 5 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't say if that was a month that we pulled in one of the other firms to assist. Those aren't broken down by month. But there's 1 month that has a 5-hour associated.
What were you doing that month?
Must have been sick.
No, we're not grilling him tonight.
Right, I mean, the Van Winkle hourly rate is higher than several of the other ones.
For the time past if you
right.
take option 2, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, I mean, if we choose one or the other in a year, can we go back and look at it and say we'd rather go the other route? And I don't know.
Town attorney serves at the pleasure of the board.
So, okay.
And would we want to,
Even if we switched to a flat rate to the hour, like.
Well, you can renegotiate the deal,
Yeah.
hire a new attorney.
Okay.
So, was it cost primarily that?
I think it's, yeah, I mean, I think so. It's cost, like I say, if it's awkward for you, Pam, it's even more awkward for me because I know and have worked with all these attorneys and respect them. And I can't say that there's any huge thing other than I just think we should make a decision.
Oh. I would also recommend Van Winkle Law Firm.
Do we make a motion, or?
I think,
Oh, we already
He
have a
made
motion.
a motion. Yeah, he made a motion.
Gotcha.
So we're just in discussion now. Right. So if you'd like to say something else, and if not, then I'll go ahead and call.
I'm good.
So all in favor of Van Winkle, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Van Winkle Law Firm has got it. Thank you very much for attending.
thank you all very much, and thank you.
Okay. It's been a request to have a break, so we'll take a 5-minute break.